I mean, a lot of things are on the plate today. What do you expect is going to happen behind closed doors?
Well, remember that 17 members of the Israeli Knesset are coming with President or Prime Minister Netanyahu. And their job is to lobby people on the Hill and in industry to support what Netanyahu wants. What does Netanyahu want? He wants the final solution for Gaza. Let's not lose sight of that. The most recent polling done by Hebrew University in Israel says that 81% of the population supports effectively genocide in Gaza. He wants to annex the West Bank. These are the things that he wants. Are we going to stop supporting him because we are uncomfortable with the mass murder and expulsion program in Gaza? Are we going to stop supporting him because we're not comfortable with another million plus Palestinians being driven away from their homes and pushed into somebody else's country? I don't think so. So I'm absolutely confident that the 17 Knesset members, along with Mr. Netanyahu, will absolutely secure continued cooperation and support for those policies.
Well, yeah, you mentioned the West Bank issue. That's actually been in the news here recently. Gary, if you could throw that headline up there. This is in a letter signed by 15 Likud ministers currently in government, as well as Speaker Ohana. The lawmakers wrote that after the state of Israel's historic achievements in the face of Iran's axis of evil and its sympathizers, the task must be completed, and the existential threat from within must be eliminated to prevent another massacre in the heart of our country. The politicians added that the strategic partnership, backing and support of the U.S. and President Donald Trump have made it a propitious time to move forward. So that seems to kind of validate exactly what you just said, that that's what their intent here is to come, is to railroad President Trump in the United States. Is he going to allow that?
Absolutely. It's not a question of what he will allow. He'll receive instructions as to what is to be done. And that's what will happen. We need to understand something. If you're in the leadership of the Jewish state in the Middle East right now, you can do one of two things. You can pursue to its bitter end the policies that we're describing in both Gaza and the West Bank. You can pursue to its bitter end the destruction of the Iranian state in some way. We call that decapitation, regime change, whatever you want to call it. If we can break up the state, if we can create anarchy and chaos down there, whatever is required, with the help of Azerbaijan and the Turks, that's what we're going to do. And we are going to support that because the Jewish state understands that right now they have effective control of us. Let there be no mistake about it. The Hill and the White House are captives of the Israel lobby. If you look at key positions, the key people that surround the president, key people in the bureaucracy, defense, and State Department, so forth, all of these people are creatures of the Israel lobby. Then you go across to the Senate, you start adding up, looking at the names of who's going to pass what legislation. You saw that in the interview between Tucker and Senator Cruz. I mean, these people are all alike. They have benefited in material and political ways from the connection with the Israel lobby. They are going to do what the Israel lobby wants. So these things will happen.
So what do you think of President Trump's claim over the weekend that I think that when Netanyahu comes here, we're going to get a ceasefire, 60-day ceasefire in the Gaza war, leading to an end of the conflict? What do you make of that?
Well, you may get some kind of ceasefire, although none of the ceasefires that we've had were very meaningful. I don't think the alleged ceasefire right now between Iran and Israel is meaningful. I would view these things as pauses. Israel can use a pause. It's going to take between now and sometime in September for the Israelis to regain the missile arsenal, the radars, the integration, all of those things that are necessary to protect the Jewish state in the Middle East, and also sort of reinforce its striking power in the air and with missiles. That takes time. They absolutely need this pause. We kind of need a pause, but they need it more than we do, and we will shift whatever we have to them, and they know that. At the same time, whatever we have will be on standby for them at sea or in the air, and potentially even on land, depending upon where you are in the region. So I see September as the point when all of this sort of breaks into the open. So a 60-day agreement with Hamas is eminently possible. The problem is that Hamas knows that. Hamas wants an end to the war. They're not going to get that. They are scheduled for extinction. The only way out for Hamas and the people that live in Gaza is death or expulsion, one of the two. And that's the Israeli position. That is our position. We support it. Same thing is going to become true increasingly for the West Bank. And the same thing is effectively true for Iran. Either Iran collapses, disintegrates, or, we fail. And effectively, Trump was seen as having failed. Now, in reality, he didn't, because he bought the Israelis time, which they desperately needed. They needed the break in the war with Iran. And they still need time right now. Iran is pretty much recovered from what it went through during the 12-day war and is going to be much stronger, much more resilient, much more robust in the future. However, it has a vulnerability, and that vulnerability right now is northwestern Iran and Tabriz and the Azeri invasion. Now, I don't think the Iranians are going to take that sitting down. In other words, I think they'll react very, very decisively when the time comes, and that may mean missile strikes on Azerbaijan that the Azeris may not have reckoned with. We'll see. But the point is, this is where things are really headed. And what we do now is tactical. Strategically, the path into the future is set. What I described is where we're headed, what's going to happen. Our vulnerability, aside from potential weaknesses in the force structure and problems with the armed forces that we don't need to go into right now, the larger issue for us is financial. And since we've abandoned any pretense of fiscal discipline and we're piling on more debt, we are on the edge of the abyss, and we're going to fall into that abyss. And I don't know exactly when it happens or how it happens, but renewing your threats against nations with tariffs, reinvigorating the wars overseas and continuing to fight the ones that we've got. All of these things are going to coincide with problems here at home with the financial system. Jobless claims are up. The real estate market is grossly overpriced. So is the stock market. Everybody says, well, the stock market's way up. Remember that stocks, investments are emotional events. Right. People emote. It doesn't matter what reality is until reality bites you. And when reality bites, everything is over. But for the moment, it's all emotion. And when President Trump made this statement, I'm going to appoint someone to replace Jerome Powell who will cut interest rates, everybody goes to the market and buys, and the market goes up. But we don't control interest rates. The market controls interest rates. Why would we be able to hold interest rates down with the Fed and then watch yields rise in the bond market? You can't explain that except to recognize that what the Fed is doing is no longer meaningful to people that we're asking to invest in our bonds. And that's why this new strategy hatched by Secretary of the Treasury Bessent to avoid the bond disaster is underway. Now, I don't think it's going to work. I think the bond market's going to explode. The foreign investment that we need to sustain ourselves is not coming in.
Yeah.
I don't see that changing.
In the last few minutes we have here, Doug, that you've just described what you think is likely to happen, what all the signals indicate are going to happen, especially in terms of the Trump-Netanyahu meeting here. But if the government was actually following an America First agenda, what should the Trump administration do with this visit with Netanyahu?
Well, first of all, they're not following an American First agenda. If there were an American First defense policy or foreign policy, we would not be unconditionally bankrolling whatever the Israelis want to do. We would have been taken in by this event on 7 October in 2023 initially, but I think our intelligence would have discovered that this was allowed to happen. The Israelis are not incompetent. They had plenty of warning. They knew what was coming. And then, of course, as Max Blumenthal has pointed out, much of what was reported about that event turned out to be utterly false. And they weren't satisfied just to say, look what happened. They wanted to elaborate because they were trying to mobilize their country and the United States and the West in their behalf. Now, I think a lot of that is worn off. But remember that the problem in the United States has always been the same. If you don't kill large numbers of us on a given day, if we don't lose 500 or 1,000 men in 24 hours, what do we care what happens overseas? Most Americans simply don't care. You know, this goes back years ago. I remember when Newt Gingrich was trying to confront Bill Clinton over the budget. And Newt Gingrich did something everybody advised him not to do. He effectively shut down the government. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And
Definitely.
ultimately, the winner in this contest was Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton said, fine, go ahead, shut down the government, see how that works out. Give me a call. And eventually they called and said, oops, this is a mistake. Why? I listened to a young man on a bike in San Francisco or somewhere near San Francisco. He was stopped by a reporter on the street, some local station, and he had a case of beer strapped to his bicycle. And they said, sir, what do you think about the government shutdown? He said, well, you know, it doesn't really affect me. I don't care. He said, you don't care? He said, well, look, I got a case of beer. I'm going to go home and watch the game.